whole thesis behind opportunity zones is that there is a lot more potential in our country than we've often understood, and that there are communities nationwide, rural, suburban, urban, that have a lot of untapped potential and a lot of capacity to grow if they're given the tools. And so what opportunity zones really represents is a tool to help local solutions thrive. And that's all it is. It's not a strategy, it's not a solution to every problem, but it's a way of shining a spotlight on communities with that potential and giving them a organizing principle, a catalyst that helps in a whole variety of other areas. We have communities who have taken a very creative approach and said, this is our chance to harness all that potential that's been on the sidelines, to get local anchor institutions and local stakeholders, leaders in the civic and private sectors and philanthropic sectors all at the same table talking about how we reclaim our economic future. And that's really exciting to me because it speaks to the inherent nature of this. It speaks to what we and those members of Congress believed at the beginning, which was if given the right types of tools and if given a chance, these are communities that really can thrive, and I think will surprise a lot of people in the long run for how well they do with this. There's a lot of misconceptions. I think part of that's a function of the fact it's new. Part of that's a function of the fact that with the rules still being written, that only a sliver of the marketplace has been able to organize and actually put this into practice. And so probably the biggest misconception is that this is a real estate incentive. That's the whole, the whole point of it. And real estate is certainly a part of the spectrum of activities that were envisioned here. But when the rules are written, it's going to allow the most important part to take shape, which is the operating business investment side of things. Again, at the heart of this is really where do you create jobs, where do you get innovation in an economy, where do you get the kind of wealth building and opportunity enriching effects in a local. It's from entrepreneurship and it's from new and scaling companies. And so that's where it needs to move, but the misconception is, because all you see today primarily are the real estate headlines, that's what it was first and foremost intended to do. I think the other misconception is that it's like the Amazon incentive, that it's a incentive that goes to a company just for moving there, no matter what they do. And it's really very different than that. It's to capital to find those new and scaling businesses, not big incumbent businesses, to invest in. So it's a relatively constrained and focused incentive that says within this lane you can do all kinds of different things, but we've excluded large publicly traded companies. We're not paying you just to move into the zone, and it's not just for buying and holding real estate. You have to make substantial improvements. You have to be additive in your economic activity. And I don't expect people to understand all those things because it's, this is tax policy and it's complicated. But I think in the fullness of time, as people see a fully mature market functioning in these areas, that a lot of those misconceptions will go away. Yeah, I think the most difficult thing about getting it passed was first introducing why it needed to be passed, getting people around the country on the same page about the challenge of regional inequality and the uneven growth we've seen since the end of the recession, and how that's changed the prospects of American communities nationwide. And so we spent a lot of time building that case, doing original research, showing members of Congress and other policymakers the data on how those trends have changed and what types of challenges that opens up that really cry out for a policy solution. But the good news was, once we were able to show people the information and really make a clear case in the data, people responded. I mean, you saw over 100 co-sponsors of folks from the right and left in Congress coming on board. So when you have nearly 100 co-sponsors on a piece of tax policy that spans that kind of political spectrum, it really shows that no matter who you are or where you are as a policymaker, this was resonating in many, many different types of communities. And that was a good indication to us that there was a lot of potential. The part I'm most focused on in many ways is the community stakeholder aspect. How do mayors and governors, how do local anchor institutions, how do they figure out what their role is in this whole thing? They can play an essential role. And so we're working both ourselves and with partner organizations to get the tools out into the field so that folks, A, know what this is intended to do, that we address those misconceptions that sometimes get in the way of the right kind of local strategy, and that we're encouraging cross-pollination, mayors talking to mayors, local investors talking to other local investors around the country to share best practices and ideas. And what's amazing is it's already leading to applications for this that we never thought of. and ways of communities binding together. Actually, you have rural communities saying, we're going to, as a regional rural set of communities, we're going to create our own opportunity fund and work together. Very much the rural ethos of neighbor helping neighbor. You've got entrepreneurs in underserved parts of major cities who've said this is an incredible opportunity to access capital, and local investors who say, I did well, I want to help the next round of entrepreneurs from my community. So that ability to be nimble and to be creative, I think is all there. It relies on the tools. It relies on people knowing how to use it. And so that's what we're very focused on. I think as the market matures, you're going to see a lot more of that local awareness and a lot more of that creativity that, again, surpasses what everybody would have imagined even on the front end. So we're very excited about that. So Opportunity Zones is a flexible tool. It can be used for housing, used for retail and commercial real estate. It can be used for operating businesses and entrepreneurship, which is really the part that we're most focused on, is how do we get capital, particularly equity capital, which is what this is based around, to businesses that need to start or scale in underserved areas. And so, number one, I would be looking for, do we see more entrepreneurship and more scalability of those companies? Number two, do we see more access to opportunity broadly for residents of those communities? Does it have the follow-on effect of bringing that reinforcing economic activity that is attracted by that new source of capital? And are you seeing stronger civic and social fabric being built because of that renewed interest in collaboration? We're starting to see the signs of all of that very early in this process, but again, 10 years plus, this is a long-term thing, so we really won't know for much longer. But I think in the long run, those are the hallmarks of success. And obviously, because these places were chosen based on eligibility related to poverty and income, we want to see those trends move in the right direction. There's a really good way to test this. The places that governors chose were more distressed across every metric than the places that were eligible that they did not choose. So if in the longer run, those fates cross and you have the places that were chosen, which started at a lower baseline, actually surpassing the places that were not selected, that's one indicator that as an asset class of places, that the effect of being designated an opportunity zone has had an uplifting effect on their community's prospects. Well, we're very focused on the needs of communities, workers, and entrepreneurs nationwide. We believe in the potential of this country. We believe we've gotten in the way of our own potential, particularly on the dynamic entrepreneurial side of things. And a lot of that is a policy failure. And so Opportunity Zones was one snapshot of a much broader spectrum of things that we care about, where we think policy can play a catalytic role in allowing the American economy to do what it wants to do. We actually have an entrepreneurial edge to our economy that is our biggest advantage in our view, and we have to protect that at all costs. And I think policymakers have taken their eye off the ball. So we're going to be spending a lot of time on the human capital component of that in the year ahead. So how do we free up workers and entrepreneurs to be more dynamic in the labor force, to be more dynamic in the business market, and to promote that healthy competition that helps our whole economy thrive?